Hello everyone. Thank you for attending today's webinar. On behalf of BIS Research, I would like to welcome you to our webinar on Future of AI in Medical Diagnosis with Emerging Technologies. This is Swati Sood, Principal Analyst for Healthcare Practice at BIS Research. I will be the moderator for today's event. Today, we are hosting one of the key stakeholders in the AI healthcare industry. We have Paul Fetcher-Dyer with us today, who is the Global Compliance Specialist in AI Medical Device Software at Cognitivity Neurosciences Limited Company. I would like to thank him for his gracious presence. We also have with us Shreya Srinivasan, Research Analyst at BIS Research. A very warm welcome to everyone.
Thank you.
By the end of this session, we will gain a brief understanding of AI and its role in medical diagnosis. In today's session, the speaker will be focusing on particulars such as the overview in healthcare, why AI and can AI diagnose, what are the factors driving restraining the adoption of AI, machine learning enabled solutions for medical diagnosis. Who is developing AI for healthcare? What are the key developments, activities being witnessed? What does the global and the regional market ecosystem look like? What are the possible solutions and what is the current situation in healthcare and its future impact on the market? Towards the end of the discussion, I will open the panel of the audience for the questions. I would request the listeners to kindly type the questions in the chat. And I will be happy to pass the questions to the speaker towards the end of the session. Also, I would request everyone in the audience to kindly mute your phones during the session. Thank you everyone for your patience and let us get started. Let us begin with gaining an overview into AI in healthcare, its relevance, its role in assisting the various stakeholders and the different types of AI ML algorithms in healthcare. Over to you, Shreya.
So AI has a significant relevance in healthcare and it has the potential to revolutionize the way healthcare services are provided. AI can lead to improved diagnosis and better patient outcomes. The relevancy of AI in healthcare is evident through the tremendous amount of healthcare data generated, the growing prevalence of chronic diseases, and the growing demand for precision medicine. So, if we talk about data first, the data in healthcare is generated through various sources such as electronic health records, medical related smartphone apps, and wearable devices. Managing such large amounts of data can be a tedious and challenging task. However, AI has the potential to manage, analyze, and interpret such huge amounts of patient data. Secondly, with the growing prevalence of chronic disorders, the burden on the healthcare system is constantly increasing. Implementation of AI in healthcare can help to improve the speed and accuracy of diagnosis, thus reducing this rising burden on the healthcare system. And lastly, AI has the ability to analyze big data in a way that can enable healthcare providers to uncover new insights and tailor treatments as per an individual. Next slide, please. Moving on, let's talk about AI's role in assisting the various stakeholders in healthcare settings. So, AI can help provide at home assistance to patients, ensure medication adherence, and conduct remote patient monitoring. Moreover, AI chatbots have also been developed that can converse with patients, conduct a preliminary diagnosis, and even refer the patient to the right healthcare professional. So, AI can also help healthcare professionals and clinicians by simplifying their workflows and acting as a clinical decision support tool. And it can do so by enabling early and more accurate detection by identifying markers. And this is all the more useful in the current scenario where the burden on the healthcare system is rising, but there is still a dearth of skilled healthcare professionals. Now, other than patients and clinicians, AI can also be advantageous to the global population. AI can map the spread and burden of diseases, and through its predictive analysis capabilities, can be used to understand future disease spread as well. And finally, AI can also be of great value to pharmaceutical, biotechnology, and medtech companies. AI can model unknown cellular mechanisms to aid in discovery. It can help select the most suited clinical trial for a patient and can significantly reduce drug discovery costs by streamlining the discovery process. Next slide, please. Now, let's talk about the AI ML algorithms which are used in healthcare. First of all, what is machine learning? So, machine learning is a subset of artificial intelligence that can effectively learn and perform better and more accurately as its exposure to the number of data sets increases. Now, machine learning can learn in three ways primarily: supervised learning, unsupervised learning, and reinforcement learning. In the supervised type of learning, a training data set with labeled data is used to help the machine learn. Whereas in the unsupervised type of learning, there is no labeled data and the machine is expected to learn gradually by identifying patterns and similarities and categorizing them into separate groups. Lastly, in the reinforcement type of learning, the system learns from trial and error based on the rewards and penalties that it receives on predicting the answer either correctly or incorrectly. Now, support vector machine, neural network, K nearest neighbor, decision tree, etc. These are the different types of AI ML algorithms which are used in healthcare. And out of these, the support vector machines and the neural networks are the most commonly used AI-based algorithms for medical applications, accounting for over 80% of the total algorithms used.
Great. I hope the overview has given the audience a fair understanding of AI and its role in healthcare. I would now like to invite Paul to take this forward by talking about why AI. Over to you, Paul.
Thank you very much and good evening, everyone. So basically, we need to treat AI as separate entities. AI is referred to globally or by various different government agencies as a single thing, but AI has multiple different applications. The best way you can think about it is with medical devices. There are different classifications depending on their risks. Therefore, you can apply the same to AIs. And there's also a line here, which is AIs in pharmaceutical are research tools. The reason this is said is that new drug discoveries, new cellular pathways, new molecules and everything, they will still have to undergo biological testing, biotoxicity testing, etc., through clinical trials. And those trials are very well controlled by various different regulations and standards. So we can essentially call AI in drug discovery as a research tool, although it is a very, very powerful research tool. If we look at AI in terms of medical devices and not data analytics, but medical devices, a medical device function is essentially a hip implant, for want of a better phrase. It replaces a biological function in one way or another. And the AIs, as has been previously mentioned before, the AIs are technically seen as limited memory AIs. You can't ask an AI to go out and find the information on its own. It has to be presented with a data set. And then this brings into conversations such as clinical data, validated data sets, bias requirements, etc., within clinical evidence requirements. And as everyone knows, there's AIs in imagery, such as CT scans, etc. There's auditory, there's data analysis. All of these are quite well known, but AI is also starting to be used in areas where there hasn't really been any measurement tools before. So we're actually introducing new healthcare data into treatment pathways. You can measure someone's gait. You can actually use AI to gait analyze someone for Parkinson's, for example. You can use it in cognition. So cognitive impairment, for example, or the way the mind works, that is a physical process that cannot actually be measured currently by standardized healthcare practices. But AI can use or provide additional information on cognition, which doesn't exist before. Next slide, please.
Interesting. And can AI actually diagnose diseases by itself? What are your thoughts on that, Paul?
Technically, this is a bit of a interesting question, really. AIs cannot actually diagnose at the moment. The reason for that is that they can diagnose, but they cannot legally diagnose. Legal diagnosis has to be performed by a suitably trained HCP or healthcare professional, doctor, a clinician, a nurse, etc. And it has to be legally managed. They have to be trained. They have to have all the evidence to require for it. For an AI to suitably diagnose a patient, they would actually have to be legally recognized as a person to start with. So from a legal perspective, the answer is no, but from a practical perspective, the answer is yes. One of the things here is, I'm sure a lot of people saw the story with CNN recently, where there was an AI identified a breast cancer diagnosis approximately 4 years before the actual doctors who were looking at the actual data set themselves. Now, the AI identified that certain cellular structure, it highlighted it to those HCPs, to those doctors, but then the doctors turned around afterwards and said, yes, we actually agree that it is. So then the question becomes, did the actual doctors diagnose that tumor, or was it the actual AI itself that diagnosed that tumor? And this is an area where we're going to get a lot more confusion coming into the area, into the market. And there's also been a lot of focus on dementia and Parkinson's or any other kind of neural degenerative disease, Alzheimer's specifically. Now, technically, Alzheimer's is a differential diagnosis. You eliminate all the different symptoms until you get to the final result, which is it must be Parkinson's. Or sorry, Alzheimer's. However, to correctly diagnose Alzheimer's in a patient only actually happens at autopsy because you have to do brain scans and slides to identify the plaques in the brain. So we're now using AIs to identify those patients who are at a higher risk of Parkinson's or dementia or Alzheimer's, and they can actually create new biomarkers, or they can identify biomarkers moving forward. So then again, is this the AI diagnosing or identifying groups who have got a higher risk of diagnosis for Alzheimer's or dementia? Or is this just a additional data set for a HCP to look at to actually be able to make that decision themselves? And that's an area where there is no real guidance at the moment. Next slide, please.
Great. That was very informative. We all know that the AI is the next big thing in medical imaging. Let's have Shreya's thought on this.
So AI is already transforming the field of medical imaging, and it is expected to continue to grow at a significant pace. The number of FDA approvals for AI-enabled medical imaging solutions have been growing owing to the rising applications of AI and its increasing adoption in countries worldwide. And as you can see, there has been a steep rise in the number of FDA approvals from 2016 onwards, with just 11 approvals in 2016 to 97 approvals in 2021, which is a whopping 782% increase. And not only this, the number of CE marked AI enabled medical devices has also been growing. The regulatory environment in Europe is less stringent than it is in the US. Almost every other month, a new AI enabled medical device enters the European market. So the number of CE marked AI enabled medical devices has increased from 13 in 2015 to 100 in 2019, which is an increase of nearly 8 times. Moreover, the market has also been witnessing many new product launches. So as you can see, around 27 companies launched new products in 2020, 28 companies in 2021, and 22 companies in 2022. So this shows that companies are actively involved in product development and differentiation. For instance, in January 2022, Philips integrated cloud-based AI and 3D mapping into its mobile C-arm system series to enhance workflow efficiency and improve endovascular treatment outcomes. And similarly, in November 2022, BIS.ai announced the introduction of an AI-powered radiology suite, which was specifically designed to alert the radiologist in their workflow of suspected diseases, prioritize work lists, and connect care teams in real time.
This is interesting. So we see the regulatory approvals and product launches both are being undertaken by the players in this space. Let us begin with the basics and understand what are some of the key factors impacting the adoption of AI-enabled solution for medical diagnosis. Over to you, Shreya.
Right, so let's have a look at these different factors that are driving the adoption of AI-enabled solutions for medical diagnosis. The first is the growing installed base of diagnostic equipment in regions such as the Asia Pacific. The growing prevalence of chronic diseases and the high number of installed bases of medical imaging equipment are some of the key factors which are responsible for the growing demand of radiology in Asia Pacific. In fact, according to data published by the OECD, Japan and Australia have the highest number of CT scanners globally. Another factor which is driving growth is the increasing funding to emerging digital health startups. Now, there has been a steep growth in the number of funding activities from 2019 and 2020 to 2021 and 2022. And this is because investors are realizing the potential that AI holds in transforming medical diagnosis and therefore are readily investing in digital healthcare companies developing AI enabled solutions. And the last factor is the ability of AI to shorten wait times and reduce the burden on the healthcare system, especially in low and middle income countries. So, AI can transform the healthcare landscape of LMICs in the following ways. Through the use of AI chatbots, it can help populations with diseases that have stigma attached to them, for instance, HIV or any psychiatric disorder. It can also predict the spread of pathologies across populations or particular communities. It can improve maternal and child health, which is one of the key issues faced in LMICs. And lastly, it can reduce the workload for healthcare professionals by assisting in clinical decision making. Next slide, please. Now, however, there are also certain factors that are restraining the adoption of AI in medical diagnosis. The biggest one of which would be the lack of transparency in AI algorithms. So, interpretability refers to the capacity of an AI system to elaborate on its decision making process, because this ensures that healthcare professionals are aware of the risks behind a decision made by the AI system. The difficulty in explaining and interpreting machine learning models is a key factor leading to the lack of transparency. This can lead to a lack of understanding of how clinically important decisions are made and the basis behind them. In fact, sometimes the basis for the decisions made by the AI system is difficult to understand even for computing specialists. Now, other than the lack of transparency, concerns surrounding the sharing of medical data of patients with third parties is another challenge. So, most countries across the world have laid down strict privacy laws and regulations which need to be followed to get patient information. For instance, the US has the HIPAA regulation to ensure patient privacy. And similarly, the GPDR or the General Data Protection Regulation in the European Union provides individuals control over their personal data and also processes health information as highly sensitive. Now, another restraining factor is the challenges which are related to identification and minimization of bias in AI algorithms. Both intrinsic and extrinsic biases can drastically affect clinical outcomes, and this is owing to different factors. For instance, number one, variability in the annotations of AI data by different physicians without mutual consensus can lead to inconsistencies and therefore skewed outcomes. And secondly, underrepresentation of certain sections of the population, such as women and minority groups, can compromise the predictive analytical capabilities of the AI system and thus run the risk of worsening patients' health conditions. Next slide,
Thank you,
please.
Shreya. It was quite informative to know about the different kinds of factors that are driving as well as restraining the adoption of AI in medical diagnosis. So, what are the ones actually developing AI for healthcare? Over to you, Paul.
Thank you. So in AI healthcare at the moment, we got to look at things in a slightly different perspective, and I will be referring back to the previous slide a little bit as well. Now, most manufacturers of medical devices or medical software are quite large companies who actually Within medical software itself is software that controls a medical device, for example, such as the software for robots and for CT scanners. And those are generally quite big companies because they need to be big companies anyway. So we're looking at the very large manufacturer side of things. Now, their easiest way to into the AI healthcare market is through acquisition of the small companies. So innovative AI approaches to the healthcare are usually done by little startups or offshoots of universities or of well, just someone with a keyboard, to be honest with you. Now, those very, very small, very, very tightly focused companies are more focused on the IT software, the coding side of things, and not actually its application or what's needed in the medical field in itself. So then you get the approach of having a number of companies on one side who have a lot of information about the coding and how things work, but then they don't know how, and then you've got the other side, which is the large companies that go along and purchase them all up. Going back to the previous slide, which was the lack of transparency in algorithms, one of those issues is what we call explainable AI versus black box AI. Now, explainable AI can tell you how 1 and 1 make 2, very easy, but a black box AI, you'll put 1 and 1 into the black box and you'll get the answer of 2, but you won't know how it actually reached that result. Now, the small companies are working on both explainable and black box AI. The large companies don't really understand the difference between the two. And the issue is that in the regulatory space, there is no difference between the two as well. So then to highlight the point from before, you then go into the healthcare pathways where the physicians do not have that knowledge, do not understand where the information has come from or how it has come from. And then that also goes for clinical evidence. So the clinical evidence of 1 and 1 equals 2 should be a lot lower than the black box version of AI. So then we come into the different types of AI again about how they should be controlled and how they should be regulated. Then we go into the conflicts between software development and medical device development. The medical device development process, the standards, the medical device regulation in the EU, the quality system regulation in the FDA, etc. They're all written around physical medical devices. They're all written around, if you have a physical product that you're sending out to be used, therefore you must do this testing on it. They cannot handle or truly understand what virtual software is, or in this case, a virtual medical device or a virtual AI product. So then you've got large companies who've got these AI products without the clinical information, but then the IT companies that they bought wouldn't have actually considered that in the first place. So then you're faced with the fact of regulations that are focusing on physical side of things, a large company that has this information and knows how to handle the physical side, but then not also the small companies that don't know how to do medical device or the medical field. So we're starting to get to a point now where there's a lot of rocks being banged together to try and figure out how the way through this. And this leads to the last point about the lack of expertise in the field. A lot of to truly understand AI development and AI in the healthcare practice and how it's actually manufactured, etc., you need to have a very broad understanding of quality systems, of regulatory systems, regulatory practices, global practices, data protection, cybersecurity, and to a certain point coding and understanding how software is developed. Now that's a very, very broad number of topics for someone to be aware of. And over the last couple of decades, with the way that medical devices or medical software has been developed, you won't find at the moment those people with that amount of experience, or you'll find very, very few of them. There's a lot of people who are experts in quality systems or in regulatory systems or in regulatory approvals, but not someone who can look at all of them. And this is where the point from the previous slide, the cybersecurity concerns are starting to become more and more prevalent. The HIPAA Act, the GDPR Acts and everything are very, very good at protecting information relating to yourself, your MRI scans, your height, your weight, anything like that, your blood pressures. But AIs don't necessarily measure those things. So there are some AIs that can measure the air disturbance that comes out from your lungs, for example. Is that classified as medical data? There are other ones that measure well, if we go back to the cognition aspects, cognition can never be measured physically, but AIs can measure it. So again, is that data actually classified as data protected? But then also the calculations that AI uses. If you've got 20 different data points for your AI to use, and it makes calculations on those 20 data points to achieve, say, another 10 further data points, and it produces an analysis on those 10 data points, are those 10 data points that are derived from the original 20, is that protected by data protection? So there's a lot of questions in the field in general as well. Next slide, please.
Thank you for explaining that. It was quite insightful to know how important it is to ensure alignment between the software development needs and the medical device development practices. Let us now discuss what are some of the possible solutions then. Over to you, Paul.
Thank you. So these are my opinions. They have been discussed with various different agencies, and there seems to be a growing consensus about the movements of these moving forward. But to highlight the first box there needs to be a fundamental shift in how AI is perceived. There is an AI directive that's recently come out in the EU. However, the EU directive on artificial intelligence tries to define artificial intelligence as one thing. However, we know that already doesn't work. And also in the terms of the healthcare field, in terms of the medical device software side of things, the new AI regulation only refers to the medical device regulation, how they're controlled, about 8 times, and a couple of those are just footnotes. So there is still a very, very large gap in knowledge about how to actually use AI and how to move that moving forward. And then we need to look at how we're going to categorize AI. Do we have the separate one for pharmaceuticals with the drug development? Do we have the separate risk classifications for within the use in medical device AIs, etc.? And all of these things, there isn't any information at the moment. There are a number of guidances, there are a number of standards being developed, but there's one fundamental problem with all of this. And this is something that's being asked by both the very large companies and also by the very small companies in developing AI. And that is, what do I need to comply with? And at the moment, the law specifically states in the EU that you must comply with the medical device regulation. Yes, there are loads of guidances. Yes, there are standards being developed. And yes, the FDA is issuing guidance documents, and so is the EU, and so is everyone else. But guidances do not have to be legally complied with, nor do international standards. So then we come in down to customer requirements. So then we have to look at things from a different perspective again. There is the legal requirement settings, and then there is customer requirement settings. And then this impacts the following 2 boxes here. So if we have a separation of AI outputs, the data protection side of things, the data sets and clinical evidence and everything else, then that is going to sit in one column of this is how you control this AI, and this is the risk classification, and this is the reward you get at the end of it, the introduction into the healthcare pathways. If you don't have those, then you're going to have a load of AI products out there which you can use but don't use, but doesn't have clinical evidence, but people are liking it because it's useful and addresses a need. And then from those different aspects, we can again start to incorporate those into healthcare pathways. We can start to integrate them into notified body practices in terms of assessments. And also it makes life easier for those larger companies and those smaller companies in how to develop those AIs in the first place. So yes, there is a solution. At the moment today, there is not a solution, if that makes sense. In the future, there needs to be a fundamental shift in how AI is actually perceived in the first place. Once that is done, then everything else can be addressed moving forward. Next slide, please.
Well, that was very insightful to understand how different properties of AI can be more easily addressed by separating the use of AI in the healthcare sector. We would now like to discuss what are the key development activities being witnessed in the ecosystem. Over to you, Shreya.
Right. Funding activities are one of the key developments that have been witnessed in this market. And as I've mentioned before, there has been a steep growth in the number of funding activities over the past few years. For instance, the number of funding activities rose from 6 in 2020 to 26 in 2021, registering an increase of more than 300%. Next slide, please. And other than that, players in this field are also involved in forming strategic alliances and partnerships with other companies for purposes such as geographical expansion. In this space, IDOC has engaged in the largest number of partnerships. For instance, in October 2021, IDOC and ScreenPoint Medical announced a partnership to develop a complete AI solution for breast imaging. Now, other than companies, some healthcare institutions and hospitals have also partnered with IDOC to bring the company's advanced radiology AI to their care sites. For instance, in September 2022, IDOC established a partnership with Sana Lichtenberg, which is one of the largest German private hospital networks, to integrate its AI algorithm for pulmonary embolism to aid radiologists in prioritizing the suspected findings of the disease. Next slide, please.
Great. So this shows that the companies are actively engaged in securing funding and fostering strategic partnership with other companies in this space. Well, now let us talk about how the global ecosystem looks like. Over to you, Shreya.
Right. So the global market for AI in medical imaging or diagnosis is highly fragmented, with some established players and many more digital healthcare mid-sized companies and startups. Each of the players holds a market share of 5% or less. Next slide, please. Now, these are some of the startups which have been founded during the period 2018 to 2022 and are headquartered in the US, Europe, and Asia Pacific. The US clearly has the largest number of digital healthcare startups globally in comparison to other countries in Europe and Asia. The US has also been consistently investing in AI to support its advancement across various fields. And moreover, the US has the largest share of AI professionals in 2022, accounting for around 1/4 of the total number of machine learning experts worldwide. Next slide, please. Now let's have a look at the market capitalization strategy of established players such as Philips and Canon. Now, Philips offers several AI-enabled devices as well as software solutions with radiological applications. It offers a range of imaging systems and also offers software for diagnostic assistance and image reconstruction. Now, moreover, Philips has also been involved in fostering strategic relations with other companies. For instance, in March 2021, Philips partnered with DIA Imaging Analysis to enhance ultrasound with AI-based image quantification. And soon after, in April 2021, Philips and Ibex Medical Analytics, which is a pioneer in AI-based cancer diagnostics, announced a strategic collaboration to jointly promote their digital pathology and AI solutions to hospitals, health networks, and pathology labs worldwide. Now, in March 2018, Philips announced the launch of Health Suite Insights, including the Insights Marketplace, to support the advancing adoption of analytics and AI in key healthcare domains. This gives data scientists, software developers, clinicians, and healthcare providers access to advanced analytical capabilities to curate and analyze healthcare data and offers them the tools and technologies to build, maintain, deploy, and scale AI-based solutions. And moreover, Philips is also leveraging technologies like augmented intelligence, cognitive intelligence, and adaptive intelligence for solutions which are intended for medical diagnosis. Next slide, please. Now moving on to Canon. Canon also offers several AI-enabled imaging systems such as CTs, ultrasound, and MRIs. It is constantly involved in development of innovative technologies and in forming strategic partnerships. Some of the unique technologies which have been developed by Canon include advanced intelligent clear IQ engine, automation platform and autostroke solution, and the Altivity platform. The Altivity platform is the latest technology which has been developed by Canon and which was launched in November 2021. It consolidates a range of deep learning and machine learning technologies to help clinicians deliver better outcomes.
Right. So we have seen how fragmented this market is and what established players are doing in an attempt to stand out from the plethora of other companies also operating in this field. Since we have discussed the global market ecosystem, let us understand how the regional landscape looks like and what are the factors that are driving the growth at the regional level. Over to you, Shreya.
The North America region, consisting of the US, accounts for the vast majority of the global market share. Now, regions like Europe and Asia Pacific are also expected to grow significantly in the next 10 years, owing to factors such as favorable government initiatives and increasing AI readiness. The government framework to support the advancement of AI is a key factor which is leading to the growth of market in Europe. For instance, in 2021, the European Commission published a proposal for an AI regulation to harmonize the rules governing AI technologies across the region. And furthermore, in September 2021, a network of EC funded research projects released guiding principles under the name Future AI for ensuring the fairness and trustworthiness of AI in medical imaging. Now, similarly, countries in the Asia Pacific region are also steadily becoming more ready to adopt technology in healthcare. According to a report published by the International Institute of Communications, governments in nearly 20 countries in the Asia Pacific region are ramping up their AI capabilities through strategical investments. China ranked the highest with an investment of around $12 billion directed towards AI in 2017, and other countries such as Australia, Singapore, and South Korea have also invested significant amounts in AI. Moreover, the awareness and AI readiness of the region are also increasing. As per the Network Readiness Index report published in 2022, India secured the highest rank in AI talent concentration and AI readiness worldwide. It had a talent concentration of nearly 48% in 2022, leaving behind countries such as Germany and Japan. Moreover, AI enabled medical imaging solutions are available for a wide range of clinical application areas. Radiology holds the largest global share, and it is expected to account for more than 50% of the global share by 2032. Now, this means that a vast majority of the approved AI enabled devices are intended for radiological applications such as diagnostic assistance, imaging, and image reconstruction.
Thank you for these regional insights, Shreya. This shows that the different regions are investing extensively in AI for medical diagnosis. Now, let us briefly understand the impact that COVID-19 pandemic had on the adoption of AI in medical diagnosis. Over to you, Shreya.
So, due to the steady rise in the prevalence of chronic diseases and the improved diagnostic capabilities of imaging systems, the trend of imaging examinations being conducted globally has been on the rise. However, most hospitals and large healthcare facilities face a shortage of radiologists to cater to these growing number of patients. Therefore, in view of the increasing burden of diseases on the healthcare system, coupled with the shortage of radiologists and other medical professionals, the integration of AI can help address unmet needs and gaps. Now, immediately after the outbreak of COVID-19, the focus of the healthcare system switched to managing the pandemic. However, AI was deployed in radiology departments across the globe to help fight COVID-19. The adoption of AI in clinical settings increased during the pandemic, owing to the numerous advantages of AI in tackling COVID-19. For instance, AI assisted in prognosis evaluation, pandemic prediction, and drug discovery for COVID-19. Now, moreover, the use of wearable devices has also been increasing due to the demand for AI. Wearable devices such as smartwatches and fitness trackers generate a huge amount of data that can be analyzed and used to improve the user's health and well being. Wearable biosensors and machine learning based devices aided remote monitoring of COVID-19 patients, thus having a positive impact on the market. Next slide, please.
Great. So this shows that the COVID-19 pandemic has a positive impact on the adoption of AI in medical diagnosis. Thank you for sharing that. Now, what is the current situation in healthcare like? What are your thoughts on it, Paul?
Thank you. So within the healthcare market at the moment, we've already covered some of these topics, but I'm just going to re-highlight them. There is a lot of guidance documents being issued, but as we already discussed, they don't actually have to be followed legally. In Europe, as has been mentioned, the AI medical technology is being released under the terms of the medical device regulation. However, the reading of the medical device regulation actually puts the onus of responsibility of approving those AIs onto notified bodies, which follows the normal process of medical device approvals within Europe. However, those notified bodies themselves do not have the information that they need to accurately prove that these products are safe. And so, as highlighted before, manufacturers of AI are looking at these systems saying, well, what do we need to comply with? And essentially are left with a lot of client requirements for access. If you look at the NHS in the UK, they are requiring a lot of additional information in terms of cybersecurity, in terms of clinical evidence, in terms of sort of trial data, etc., to prove that these products are safe, because there is no such system at the moment. If you look at any private company, they're also doing the same. So then you're looking at a company who may not have a whole lot of funding because they're a small company trying to break into the healthcare market, having to comply with 100 different requirements just for 5 different people. So there's a lot of challenges in the market from a manufacturer perspective, but the market itself isn't actually much better. If you look at it from a patient pathway, healthcare pathway point of view, the healthcare market, the clinics, the hospitals, the individuals, they're all being sort of inundated with, our product can do this, our product is wonderful, we can do this, we can help you, we can change your pathway, we can speed up your imaging, we can speed up your patient analysis. However, the bigger the institution, the more problems you're going to face, because those big institutions, let's take the NHS, for example, in the UK, those healthcare pathways are set between primary care and secondary care. And also they're very, very set in stone because that's the way they've always been done. So to introduce AI into normal practice for healthcare pathways, leading from primary into secondary, you actually have to look at the NHS pathways themselves in the first place. You may have 100 doctors across 20 of the different trusts who love your product, but if the trust turns around and says, no, we can't use it, we can't change our process, then you can't use that product. And these are very, very big problems. And again, this applies across the globe at the moment. So essentially at the moment, there are lots of novel products going out onto the market. There's a lot of work being done in terms of trials, in terms of getting HCPs and clinicians to look and use your product. But ultimately, outside the scope of trials or outside of novel applications, AI medical technology for the patient themselves is nowhere near where it should be. And that is something down to, like I said, the healthcare pathways themselves. A lot of the medical imaging stuff is amazing, as has been proven in this demonstration, in this webinar, and they are absolutely brilliant. But again, is that just from one clinic? Is that from multiple clinics? Is that from multiple hospitals? Now, the work that needs to be done to change those pathways is going to come down to a lot of government, a lot of pressure from lobbying groups, and a lot of change internally for both companies and for clinics. So the current situation is in flux, unfortunately. Next slide, please.
So this means, despite technological advancement in AI technology, challenges to access the benefits of AI medical technologies are there. And finally, on the same line, what do you think the future impact would look like? Over to you, Paul.
Thank you. So the future impact, we have to have a look, and we have to be very cynical, unfortunately, in this perspective. Moving forward, there will be a lot more products coming out, a lot more AIs being used, and a lot more AI data for analytics and everything else, which is just going to be the best thing for the patient at the end. However, we have to look at the flux and the confusion, as mentioned before, the legal requirements or lack thereof. So one of the situations that has to be considered in the future is that when governments or regulators decide to approve AIs in a certain way, to say you must have this amount of clinical evidence for this AI or for this AI, you must produce the technical pack in this format or in this way, it's entirely possible that in the future, a lot of companies who have put those AI products out in the market in the current climate, which is open to flux, will then turn around and say, well, we're not going to comply with those new rules because it's not economically viable. Because there is a lot of work involved in trying to get the trials set up if you need the clinical data, even just trying to adjust the product files themselves is a lot of work internally. Now, what would that mean on the patient is that if those healthcare pathways we discussed are adapted to include those AI products, but then the company turns around and says, we're not going to do it because we're not going to comply with those new rules because we don't think it's economically viable, then those new pathways are then going to collapse again. So we have to look at it from a very cynical point of view, which is not ideal, admittedly. Yes, new technology is brilliant. Yes, it can really, really help the patients and it can really make things better. But because there is a lack of knowledge, a lack of regulation of those AIs at the moment, and a lack of how to interpret or apply those to healthcare industries as a whole, it's either going to be a case of, yes, everyone is going to accept these AIs and there'll be grandfather clauses in there and it's all going to be smelling of roses, for want of a better phrase. But on the opposite side is we're going to see a load of products disappear from the market because they're not economically viable anymore. So unfortunately, it's looking into a crystal ball at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you all the speakers for your valuable insights on the future of AI in medical diagnosis with emerging technologies. AI has immense potential to transform the field of medical diagnosis. With that thought, let me conclude today's session, following which I declare the forum open for any questions from the listeners. So we have our first question. So the first question is, what do you think are some of the key trends being witnessed in AI in medical diagnosis space? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, sure. So, I would say that actually AI-enabled software solutions are the ones who are much more prevalent in the current scenario. Like they account for nearly 80% of the type of AI-enabled medical devices that are available in the market currently. However, the integration of AI within hardware systems is a trend that will be now witnessed in the coming years. Because even if AI has started as an algorithm, as a software put on a server and connected to a network, more and more of it goes to the device itself. So I believe that some AI algorithms will be built inside mammography systems to help the technician take decisions even before the doctor reads the mammogram. So there are certain challenges currently with integrating hardware systems, AI within hardware systems, but that is about to change, and that is a trend that I think will be witnessed in the coming years.
Great. Paul, can you let us know that AI-enabled medical devices be regulated the same way as the other medical devices?
Technically, at the moment, the only way an AI-enabled medical device can be approved on the market is in comparison to other medical devices. So it's under the same regulations as the Medical Device Directive or the Medical Device Regulation or the FDA equivalent, etc. It's the only way to actually approve those AI medical devices. The issue comes in is that AI medical devices, there's a lot of the quality system regulations and a lot of the actual requirements for those medical devices are based around physical products. So a lot of the information doesn't need to be applied. So if you took a normal AI product under the medical device regulation, over half of the rules that are required for medical devices would not actually apply because they are not a physical product. So the answer is yes, but it's actually it's the only legal way of actually getting an AI onto the healthcare market at the moment, but it's also not the best way of doing it, if that makes sense.
As you talked about the ability of AI to reduce the burden on healthcare system and shorten the waiting times, are there any other key opportunities that AI holds in healthcare?
I believe there is. I believe there's a lot. Yes, we spoke about the healthcare pathways and the shortening of times, but taken to the hand the amount of information that can be analysed by the AI in the first place, providing new information. There's the data set analysis, there's the global population analysis to identify those groups. There's a way of, if you took, for example, one of the new drugs aimed at Alzheimer's, for example, those clinical trials for those Alzheimer's drugs would have to screen over 100,000 people to get a population of, say, 10,000. And the only way to actually identify Alzheimer's is through a spinal biopsy or a lumbar puncture. And no one will ever approve you to do 100,000 lumbar punctures, but AI can be used to limit down that population in the first place. So instead of doing 100,000, you may only have to do 10,000, which is a much nicer number. Also, there's the aspect of new insights into healthcare measurements, or for want of a better phrase. We mentioned cognition before. What other aspects, is there a way of measuring or using AI to measure the cellular data transfer, for example, how those cells work, how those how fluid pathways work in the brain, etc. There's a lot of possibility in the market. There's a lot. So it can only be a good thing if it's regulated right in the first place.
Great. So we have more questions also. However, due to the shortage of time, we will answer all the questions over mail. I would now like to talk about some of the related reports from BIS Research. We have some of the reports like Global Artificial Intelligence in Operating Room Market, Global Artificial Intelligence in Neurological Operating Room Market, the Global AI-enabled Imaging Modalities Market, AI-enabled Medical Imaging Solutions Market, and the Global AI in Healthcare Market. Moreover, we are also coming up with one of the report, AI or ML Medical Devices Market, coming week. Moreover, to know more about the coverage of the report, we can share the sample as well as the TOC, and the report will be, you can visit the website for further details. Coming to Insight Monk, the whole concept of designing or coming up with the Insight Monk was to share the knowledge that the industry experts have. At BIS, we successfully conduct these niche projects. We heavily rely on our AI-based platform, which we call a deep technology platform, Insight Monk. The web platform is beautifully and extensively designed, depicting three major sections that could be of interest. Firstly, industry experts, where we have tried to integrate market experts from different industries, from different regions to come together on a web platform where they can network with each other. Another section, which is very insightful in industry reports, collated from various reliable sources, categorized under vertical like space tech, agri, mobility, chemical, healthcare, etc. Lastly, it has detailed question and answer section wherein you can get engaged in the existing discussion or initiate your own. Once you are registered on it, sales colleague will reach out to you for the next process. Thank you.